Good morning, everyone. I'm Nancy Wadrago with University of Illinois Extension's Community and Economic Development Program. We're happy to co-host today's kickoff for the webinar series, Illinois Digital Equity Capacity IDEC Grant Series, brought to you by the Illinois Office of Broadband and the Illinois Broadband Lab. And we're happy to welcome Ling Liu, Shubika Agarwal, and Hillary Rains. We're grateful for this outreach. Thank you so much for being here, Ling Ling, and I'll pass it to you now.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you always to the support of U of I Extension for helping us present these webinars. My name is Ling Liu. I am a Community Engagement Manager with the Illinois Office of Broadband. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I think we have over 80 participants today. Welcome and happy Friday. Very excited to present the very first of a series of Illinois Digital Equity Capacity support webinars to you all, and also have an amazing announcement today that I will have the honor to share as well. Our topic today is leveraging data for storytelling, specifically how to use data in your IDEC grant application. Here's a look at how we're spending our time today. I'll be talking about the Illinois Digital Equity Capacity Grant for about 10 minutes, giving you some context, and then handing it over to my colleague Shubika to discuss leveraging data for storytelling. And then back to me, I will be showing you some examples of how data is used in grant proposals. And then at the end, we will have time for questions. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout the presentation. My colleague Hillary will be monitoring those and answering as needed, and she will also be dropping appropriate links to the different slides and data sources as appropriate throughout the conversation as well. Our objective today is to help you understand common terms around data, learn how to find relevant broadband and digital equity data that informs your work, explore ways to incorporate data in grant proposal writing specifically for this grant, and then see examples of how data is used in grant proposal writing. Here is a brief overview of this grant and this amazing announcement. I'm happy to share for the first time externally that we will be dropping the notice of funding opportunity on Monday, February the 3rd of this year. I know this has been a long time coming. I remember we were naive at the beginning saying that the grant would be coming September last year, but now it is official. We'll be releasing the NOFO on February the 3rd. So more details to come on that. And our technical assistance webinar for this grant will be on Friday, February the 7th at 11 a.m. So make sure you have registered for that. And I believe if you're registered for this series of webinars, that one should be on your calendar as well. I'm not seeing the chat, but I hope some folks are celebrating. And then a little bit about our team. The Illinois Office of Broadband was founded in 2019. We are one of the 50 state broadband offices tasked with carrying out over $1 billion in broadband infrastructure as well as digital equity programs. So since 2020, we've been implementing the Connect Illinois grant program. And then starting yesterday, which is when we released the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment NOFO, also called Connect Illinois Round 4. So the next 5 years, we'll be implementing BEAD dollars. And then also starting Monday, February the 3rd, we will be implementing the Digital Equity Act Capacity Grant. On the state side, we have a team of grant managers that support our grantees in your projects. And then we also have a compliance manager, a team of community engagement managers, including myself covering the whole state. And then our policy team that includes a policy analyst and Illini science policy scholar to make sure we stay up to date to federal and state regulations and policies. On the university side, we have the Illinois Broadband Lab. Thanks to their expertise, we have the capacity for mapping and data. And that person is Shubika, who you will hear from later today. And then a network of regional engagement universities, 10 public universities across the state doing digital equity impact projects and serving as our conveners in each of the 10 economic development regions. And then finally, and also importantly, a network of digital navigators guided by our digital navigation director. Before I dive into the grant details, I like to go over terminologies around digital equity and inclusion, just so we're on the same page and understand the importance of this work. When we talk about digital equity, we're talking about the condition where each individual in each community has access to the information technology capacity that's needed so that everyone can fully participate in today's society and economy. And that's a highly digital society and economy. 92% of all Illinois jobs today require digital skills. When we use the term digital inclusion, we're talking about the work that has to happen, the activities that you all and us are doing that are needed to make sure that each individual has access to the use of reliable and affordable broadband, computing devices, digital skills training, technology support, privacy, and cybersecurity. And when we use, when we use the word equity, we are acknowledging the systemic barriers that have existed and that must be dismantled in our state before achieving equitable outcome for everyone. This grant is thanks to the 2021 Digital Equity Act. It provides over $30 million to Illinois to implement the state digital equity plan. In this plan, we have defined 5 core activities to achieve equitable outcome in Illinois, and one of the 5 is the Digital Equity Grant Program. The vision for this plan is to ensure universal access to high-speed broadband, leverage new and existing resources to advance the adoption of internet use, and then empower all Illinoisans to use and participate fully in today's digital economy and society. I strongly encourage you all to read the report, the plan. There is a condensed version of it, and it includes a lot of community input, data resources, key performance indicators that will be very helpful for your grant proposal writing. It is important to note that a lot of identity groups and communities in Illinois have been disproportionately impacted by digital inequities. And NTIA, the federal agency that grants us the fund to do this work, requires that we prioritize these 8 covered populations. They are low-income households, aging populations, so folks who are 60 years and older, incarcerated individuals, veterans, people with disabilities, rural inhabitants, racial and ethnic minorities, and people with language barriers. 80% of all Illinois residents are part of these identity groups, and we understand that a lot of these identities intersect as well. Here is a brief timeline for the funding of the Digital Equity Grant. So starting today and through February, we will be presenting capacity building and educational webinars to help you with your application. February the 3rd, NOFO launch. And then Wave 1 grant will be due 45 days since NOFO launch, which is March 20th. And then another 45 days, May 1st is when Wave 2 grant applications are due. And then we're hoping to get funding distributed to grantees so that you can start your work in summer this year. And then we will have a 3-year performance period to hear about all the wonderful work you're doing with the funding. The total amount of funding expected to be awarded is up to $13.5 million. For each applicant, the awards will range from $30,000 to $300,000 annually for a 3-year term. These are the organizations that are eligible to apply. So a foundation, corporation, institution that is not for profit and not a school, workforce development organizations, Indian tribes, Native entities, educational agencies, political subdivision agencies such as local government, partnership between any of these entities above, And of course, our community anchor institutions such as public school district, housing authority, libraries, healthcare organizations, higher education institutions, and other community action support organizations. You might already be very familiar with this slide. So these are the funded project types that we're considering. Digital literacy and skills building. So any sort of learning opportunities to help folks build digital skills. Device distribution. So laptops, computers, tablets, and other devices given out to households and individuals for free so that that cost barrier is removed. Digital navigators, so trusted members of a community designated to guide folks to enroll in high-speed internet, navigate technology challenges and support, get a low-cost device, find digital skills training opportunities in the community. And computer center, so establish, improve, or expand a community space so that folks can access high-speed internet and use a computer with no cost. And then the last one is mostly applicable to local government. So this one provides resources for communities to create their own roadmaps to expand broadband connectivity. So local government can work with an engineering firm, a consulting firm to define their goals, assess the market and consumer needs, and then engage internet service providers and see how they can partner to fund broadband expansion that really works for their community. It's important to note that your application can cover one or more project types. You don't have to focus on one, nor do you have to cover all of them to be eligible. And our NOFO is coming on Monday, February the 3rd, so there will be more details to come about these project types. So in the application packet, you will be required to demonstrate community need and service of covered populations, capacity of the eligible applicant, quality of the proposal, including alignment to state digital equity plan, show support from your community, a standard budget book, and also your plan for sustainability. Here is an overview of the application review criteria. And for the purpose of our topic today, using data for grant application, we're specifically focusing on the top 3 criteria. So community need, capacity, and quality of the proposal. So when we talk about community need, we're talking about the level of demonstrated need for improved broadband access, adoption, and use, and focus on serving one or more covered populations. For capacity of your organization, we're talking about the level of commitment and appropriate skills of your organization to manage the project, specifically experience in similar digital equity programming or demonstrated knowledge of and experience serving covered populations. We're talking about the quality of the proposal. We're referring to the level of details and clarity in your implementation plan, how you're doing outreach, how you're serving covered populations, and how you're aligning to the outcomes and goals and key performance indicators of the state digital equity plan. We do have a website with Digital Equity Act resources. On that page, you will have access to the state digital equity plan as well as the appendix that includes a lot of data sources. We also have all the webinars from previous digital equity capacity building sessions last summer, I believe. And then finally, free digital equity resources such as free curriculum, the Digital Equity Act population viewer, and some NDIA's digital navigation model and digital inclusion program manual for you to read as well. And I will pass it on to Shabika to cover data.
Awesome. Thanks, Ling Ling. Really excited to see all of the participation in the chat with the good news around the NOFO dropping pretty soon. On that note, really excited to also share about how you can use data as part of your application, specifically geared towards like the IDEC application. So all of the different categories that Ling Ling mentioned, we'll be focusing on the first 3 today and look at some of the initial data sources that can be useful, and certainly interested to hear about some of the other ones that you have been utilizing or have previously used. So why data? Again, looking at the participants who've joined us today, a lot of you've been super active in the digital equity grant space. So I'm sure this is familiar, but we still want to start off with like a good level setting for everybody. So why data and how it's like really helps with all of the grant process. So number one, definitely a good foundation for decision making. So in terms of allocating resources, designing programs, and identifying community needs, it really helps drive strategic planning based on which initiatives to prioritize, how do we monitor progress through our various programs, and adjust as we need to depending on what we're seeing works or does not work for the community. Building trust and transparency with stakeholders. Again, a lot of these programs requiring collaboration with other partners, and as you're also requesting for grant funding, a lot of times just shows all the work that's already been done and how recognized the organization is, leading to like their success with these kind of initiatives. Empowering communities to better understand their challenges and participate in shaping solutions, unlocking trends and patterns. So again, really helpful with the decision making side of things and seeing what are those different groups that need specific attention, what are the specific activities that might have to be prioritized within the community, and building a compelling story. Again, this will also really help your application as we're evaluating it. So past successes and the need in the community, just making your application stand out and sharing your story for why this is important. I think that's what data really enables for a lot of times in these applications. We'll level set with a few common terms that we'll be using in the rest of the presentation. So starting off with data, just really raw facts and figures that come from various data sources. When that is organized into like structured formats and tables, we refer to it as a data set. And when we clean that, remove inconsistencies or errors, that's mostly like the data cleaning portion of it before we get into the data analysis, which is where we really start to process the data, look for different patterns in there, draw conclusions, and that is what can be used for the decision-making aspect of our programs. Then different ways of digesting this data. So there's data visualization. So instead of like reports, if it's through charts, graphs, maps, and we'll also look at some of other examples in the following slides, but that really makes it easier to make sense of all of the data and analysis that we might have done. The key performance indicators. So as the name suggests, with a lot of these programs, you certainly want to know what is the impact in the community, how has it been progressing so far, how effective that is. So that's usually through some kind of metrics and indicators that we select to show the highest impact that the program has had within our communities. The two different kinds of data sets that we can be using. So quantitative data, again, as the name suggests, a lot of numeric data that can be used to like share patterns and trends and the needs and the impact in the community. And then we have qualitative data, which is non-numeric, but it could be like through interviews or focus groups or just like conversations within the community that again highlight the need and the impact. This could be through surveys as well, or just like observations with your work in the community. Then we have dashboards. This is, again, a means of visualization, focusing on certain key performance indicators and KPIs and making it super easy for somebody to get an overview of all of the work that has been done. And then we also have infographics, again, a means of visualization, making it easier for people to digest the quantitative and qualitative data and also the conclusions that one might draw from it. And we'll have examples of a lot of this covered in the following slides. So just want to also keep this a little interactive and also build off of the experience that we have, from all of our participants today. So would really encourage participation here from you in the chat in terms of how has your organization really used data in the past? What level of geography you've dealt with based on the area of interest for your organization, and if you would like to mention some of the sources that you have previously used. And while we wait for some of those responses, we also have a small example of an infographic on the right side, which is from the State Digital Equity Plan, just talking about the availability of broadband infrastructure, affordability, access to devices, and the levels of digital literacy. So this is statewide and sort of a baseline for where we're currently at in the state, but moving forward with a lot of the work that's happening through our organizations and will be funded through the IDEC program, definitely, envision that this is going to go in the right direction. So I'm seeing some responses in the chat. Zandy Wright is sharing, we've used Digital Equity Act population viewer from the census.gov quite a bit. So that's really good. Yeah, definitely focused on the covered populations that Ling Ling had previously shared. Thanks, Zandy. Alexis has shared census, CostQuest Fabric, Illinois Broadband Map, UCLA, MLab, and a lot of speed test data. That's awesome. Shauna, digital equity programs across state and determining where we should do additional outreach to create a full Illinois digital equity ecosystem. Absolutely. That's a great example. Namhi, and again, forgive me if I am not pronouncing names right. We leverage data from various national databases to address health equity in Lake County. That's great. Thanks, Nami. Mandy, brand reports, but also help us determine areas of need, program offerings, census, City of Chicago information, neighborhood stats, client surveys. Awesome. Oh, I'm glad I pronounced that right. Kate used citywide Chicago data, census data, city data portal. Yes, awesome. I see a lot of great responses. Definitely keep them coming throughout. And we'll see a lot of these data sources also reflected in different aspects of our presentation today. So we definitely have a lot of good brain power here already. And hopefully there are a few in here that might be helpful or new to you as well. So moving on to the next slide. Why data matters. So seeing that we have quite a few nonprofits in here, local governments, and then a few other organizations joining us as well. So I think for local governments, it really helps create an informed and evidence-based policy development, optimal resource allocations. Again, as Ling Ling mentioned, there is a specific amount of funds that's available. So, and there is a lot of interest within the state to be making use of this. So data certainly can help us optimally utilize this and make sure it goes to organizations that can have maximum impact, that are more trusted in the community and all of that. And it also ensures for transparent performance tracking. That's for the local government side of things. And for nonprofits, tracking program impact and effectiveness, identifying target populations and areas to optimize service delivery and strengthen advocacy and funding for their specific organizations. So a lot of what we want to be doing moving forward with the IDEC program. So now getting into the specifics of how exactly we can be using a lot of these sources as you prepare for your IDEC applications that are going to be open soon. So starting off with the first category of sharing about the community need in service of covered populations. There are different aspects that can be covered in this section. So we'll be starting off with the socioeconomic need. What this will really help us knowing is the demographic data for this and the context for the community that's going to be served by that particular applicant. And also the socioeconomic needs within the community. So examples like educational attainment, poverty rate, participation in benefits programs. So these are like some of the examples that we'll be looking at. But a lot of this available through like national and state level data sources. And it's available out there, but it's really helpful to include in applications just so that we have confidence in, yes, this organization knows about their community and the need, and then also going a step forward to show how that need is really like, built into the program that you are planning to offer. So we had a few participants mention the NTIA Digital Equity Act population viewer, definitely a very good source to get the numbers on the percentage of covered populations. This is available both at the county level and the census tract level. So depending on your area of influence and scope of work, really, you can decide on which geography you want to be working on. There are a lot of these indicators that are also available through the census data. On the left, you can see in the context side of things, I've also mentioned a few census tables for educational attainment and poverty rate. So again, you can just type in these numbers onto data.census.gov and then select your specific geography to get those specific numbers for your community. Then there's a data source called IPUMS, which again has data through US Census, and then it basically aggregates it into project areas called PUMAs, which is public use micro data areas. So that's a little different from census tracts and counties, but then that's how they aggregate all of that information. And it's a little more granular. So we've also shared instructions for how to utilize some of the data from IPUMS there. Our previous Illini Science Policy scholars have helped create some dashboards around adoption based on different socioeconomic characteristics within the community. So exploring some of these data sets, also looking at the intersectionality between them could really help out bring the actual need within the community. So we'll not look at these specifically today because we want to get through the content and make sure you have most of the data sources that we want to share with you today. But if you have questions as you are digging into some of these data sources, definitely always feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you with any specific questions. And then we have broadband access statistics as well, based on different socioeconomic characteristics. For different program eligibility, there's the ACP eligible population. Again, the program's not active, but based on eligibility, it does speak to the need in the community. So that tool still being live, and that can be a good data point. And then we have other programs like SNAP, the National School Lunch Program, SAIPE data, which is again, it's the Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates. This is also through census, and it has information for different school districts, counties, and also at the state level. So depending again on your area of interest, you could choose the scale that you're looking for. And then USDA has certain resources for distressed communities and socially vulnerable communities as well. Moving on to the next slide, we'll look at now the broadband availability, which also shows the need in the community. So a lot of times this would be informed by speeds available, technologies, providers in a specific area, if the area is eligible for specific grants, and if they've received prior state or federal funding. So we have the Illinois broadband map. This now also has the mapping layers for the BEAD eligible locations. We also have the PAU selection tool, which if you're engaged in the BEAD conversation, you'll have a little more context there, or we'll be sure to share additional slides if that'll be helpful. We have the FCC broadband map, again, super granular at the location level. What does availability look like? For past funding, we have the USAC Connect America Fund map and the broadband funding map, which looks at all of the other broadband infrastructure funding in areas that have received it. We have this latest resource for BEAD eligibility data as well, summarized at the county level. So if you just want to get a sense of what's the BEAD eligibility looking like for your county, and don't want to dig into like actual maps and just get numbers, this might be a good resource for you to look at. Again, next with community need, more focused on digital equity, adoption, and use data. So what would really be helpful to look at here would be broadband affordability, barriers towards adoption, the level of skills and comfort that people have, how they're using the internet, the confidence, and then also being able to tap into specific uses. Like we had an example of Lake County really working on the health equity side of things. So telehealth could be one. We have more agricultural focused organizations working with farmers. Then there's school districts and the education side of things. Also organizations working on economic development and governance and making sure people have access to resources online. So a lot of that can be fed into this particular section of the application. So Census has a lot of information on subscription and access to devices. NTIA Internet Use Survey has a lot on the different sources that people use, or activities that people use the internet for. There's the Illinois Care Connections report for assistive devices if you're working with senior population. The National Skills Coalition on measuring digital skills, again, available at the state level, and it's a national report for talking about different states. School district technology surveys to see how things are going for the students and teachers in these school districts. The technology use survey on farms by USDA. So again, these are like some representative examples of the different focus areas that we've seen our stakeholders work with. And then we also heard about local and city level plans that people are utilizing. So definitely a great resource if you already have your own surveys and city level data and all of that you can tap into as you're talking about need for digital equity. That certainly stands out as well. Looking at all of the quantitative data so far, so moving on to qualitative, as we mentioned previously, you could be doing interviews, focus groups, and surveys with open-ended questions to actually get some of this qualitative data that can also help inform the need within your community and the populations that you would like to target through your program. So we have a few examples here, like a heat table, word clouds, encoding stripes. So the objective really being you can use a lot of the interview for like transcription, so turning spoken words into text that can be further analyzed. With something like coding stripes, you could identify patterns and just label different chunks of text based on this is the actual sentiment around, the questions that you're asking and how that could really play into the need and the impact that the program has had. Thematic content analysis. So again, if there are like certain words that come up more frequently or trends and patterns in terms of just like the interviews or focus groups or responses that you've received, what kind of a story does that really share? And again, bringing in a lot of these different data sources to help confirm your findings, which is referred to as triangulation, could be certainly helpful in sharing the need, the impact. So really getting to a lot of those keywords there. Moving on to the next section, so the capacity of the eligible applicant. So the different things that you should be considering to demonstrate that you can successfully implement the digital equity program that you're proposing. So some of the considerations here, making sure that the proposed project aligns with the mission of your organization through all of the different data sources that we had mentioned through qualitative data. If you're able to show track record of the impact that you've had through previous programs, and then also your commitment to priority communities or like the covered populations that Ling Ling had mentioned. So that can be really helpful in showing how this will be successful and in alignment with the needs of the program. In the next slide here, really looking at some of the key points that you could include. to share this kind of narrative. So your reach and inclusion with past programs, again, if you're able to break it down by covered populations, and just describe the impact that it has had on the community, the scope of the program. So what have you been able to achieve in the past? Again, qualitative data and maybe stories that you could share around this, and just broader impact in terms of, say, if you are specifically focused on one of these areas around economic growth, educational access, health improvements, civic engagement in the community, or service delivery. So that is how you can be just enhancing your narrative around how you're actually capable to serve a lot of those areas that you mentioned in your application. We have a few examples here. This is from our prior IDEC grantees, which is our state level digital equity program running right now. So what we'd want for you to focus on here is just how some of the quantitative data, and then we also have excerpts from the program managers of these programs, just sharing how it has really impacted their community. So again, you don't necessarily have to build out these visuals, but the idea is to show how you could be sharing like the number of 36 learning hours per participant. 90% of participants served are Hispanic. So if there's a target population that you're serving, just bringing that out. And if that's aligns with the covered populations, that's definitely good. And then 44 graduates across all programs in the year. And then we have the example of the Erie Family Health Centers. The previous one was the Northwest Center. So here again, pretty big numbers focused on how they were made on the health equity side of things, connecting people to digital resources, and just providing all of that. So the key thing here would be, again, there's no big or small number here, depending on your area of influence and the people and populations that you work with, as long as you're able to capture and share a story for the impact that you've had through, say, one-on-one tech help sessions, learning hours for participants, computers distributed is one of the big ones, the tech resources available at your organization, or the number of organizations you've been able to collaborate with in terms of digital literacy, the number of courses, the badges distributed, the drop-in sessions that you've had. So anything that's quantifiable and shares a story of impact, that will certainly be helpful in sharing your story and the impact that you've had in the community. The third one being alignment with the state digital equity plan. This is going to be key. So anything that we fund through the IDEC program, we'd want to make sure that it aligns with our goals in the state digital equity plan. So on the left here, we have a screenshot from the state digital equity plan appendix, which basically lists all of our goals and objectives. So this can be a super helpful resource in just identifying how your program goals align with the goals that we have laid down in the plan. These are all broken down into six different areas: so broadband availability, broadband affordability, digital literacy, device availability and affordability, technical support, and online accessibility and inclusivity. So depending on what really fits with your goals and objectives, really bringing this out, sort of this link between the two, will again help us understand how the two are aligned and how your program can help move the needle in terms of the goals that we have laid in the state digital equity plan. And the last slide here, again, turning data into visual stories. There's definitely going to be a lot of text narratives that you can fill out, but there's also opportunity to just share visualizations as well. That makes it easier for the reviewer to get a sense of the impact that you've had through your programs. So we're kind of towards the close here, but I would like to quickly go through some of these examples here. Again, simplicity is going to be really key here. There are a lot of examples of the different types of visualizations with maps, charts, and all of those things that you can utilize for your storytelling. And some of the key tools that you could be using would be Excel, Tableau, and Power BI for dashboards and graphics. Then there's Canva, which is also the ones that we've seen in the examples that we've shown for our digital equity projects. And then there's QGIS, which is an open source geospatial data analysis tool that can be super helpful in just creating some of the maps that you might have seen in different spaces to share your story. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Ling Ling to share a few more specific examples. And sorry for going a little over time here.
No worries. Thank you so much, Shubika. We're running slightly behind, so I may just talk through things quicker. So here are some examples for each of these application requirement for your reference. So when it comes to community need, you can consider telling your story by using information such as demographic information, including percentage of covered populations in the communities that you serve. Additional information like unemployment rate, poverty rate, education level, health insurance, additional socioeconomic indicators such as residential segregation, crowded housing, median household income, etc. Their access to basic internet, ownership of computing devices, and the need for digital skills to access health, banking, education, social engagement, etc. And also important to note that community stories, anecdotes on their challenges to access these resources are also helpful qualitative data that you can use. One example is, talking about being in a high economic hardship community. This township is rated among the lowest scores on different indicators, and also the percentage of their population over 64, under 18, and their per capita income to illustrate the high community need for digital equity work. The next one, capacity. When talking about the capacity of your organization and of your staff, make sure that you describe the programs, the existing programs that you're currently doing, like the devices and services offered, qualification of the staff, your program outcomes, such as number of participants per program, participants completing a certification, success stories and thank you letters from participants about how your program have helped them and benefited them. One example is talking about the program, how it represents a partnership with other organizations in the area, symbolizing a collective effort, and then outlining the number of participants enrolled in the different programs such as Microsoft Office, Google, and also number of participants accessing your computer center in your computer lab and in order to use high-speed internet. And then quality of proposal, again, this is where we're really looking for you to define your work and see that alignment to the state digital equity plan. We're looking for details in the description of your plan program, such as how are you allocating the budget, your staffing, the services plan, how you're doing outreach and marketing, how you're collecting data and reporting, and which goals and key performance indicators in the state digital equity plan your program is aligning with. In this example here, it's talking about quantifiable impact. We aim to enroll X number of amount of participants in this program, hoping to reach, number of participants using the open lab. And then these outcomes will be tracked using intake spreadsheets. Here is one example of, again, how you can illustrate your program objectives, the frequency of your offering, the target outcomes, and the alignment to the state digital equity plan. So for example, over here, walk-in center on Fridays and help desk via phone. This is offered weekly, and you're tracking the number of walk-in patrons served and the number of technology support you're offering via phone. And this aligns to indicator B1G in the report, increased availability of free technical support offered in Illinois. So to summarize everything, when it comes to using data and writing your grant proposal, make sure that you attend all the webinars to know more about the scoring and application insights. Read up on all the grant application resources. We will be sending out all the data links as well as the PowerPoint for you to refer to later. Quantitative data is just a starting point. Make sure to integrate it with local knowledge. Build data collection into your program design from the get-go. Qualitative data complements quantitative data. When they're used together, it provides a fuller picture and really helps folks understand not only the what, but also the why of your program. Data visualization really helps, in driving impact and engagement. Some don'ts include make sure you're using updated data, not outdated data. Make sure you're not assuming that national or state level data trends apply locally without your local context. Make sure you're not making conclusions and assumptions based on very limited data or based on specific demographics and apply them to other demographics. Finally, definitely do not minimize, invalidate, or negate individual experiences due to larger data trends. There's a lot of diversity that exists in our communities, and we're not a monolith. So our own experiences are all unique. So next steps, as I mentioned from the very beginning, this is the first one of a series of webinars that's aimed at helping you prepare for applying the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant. The next one coming up is on February the 3rd, the day of our NOFO drop. It will be talking about specific project areas, including device distribution, digital literacy, and tech support. And the 7th is our NOFO technical assistance webinar. On February the 10th, we'll be covering 2 more project areas, community technology centers and broadband planning. And finally, on February the 14th, we will be talking about digital navigators. We are also planning 2 open office hours per week throughout the grant open period. So look out for those. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter and follow us on LinkedIn, Illinois Broadband Lab. The 3 community engagement managers are here to support you. If you have any questions in the north, we have Alicia Ross. In the central region, it's myself, and in the south, it's Hillary Rains. And if we have overwhelmed you with information, you don't know where to start, always feel free to just send us an email at broadband@illinois.gov. We're happy to answer any questions and go over information with you. And Nancy, handing you over to facilitate Q&A.
Thanks so much, Ling Ling. We've got a good amount of talk. You had some great accolades there in the beginning, and congratulations as well on behalf of U of I Extension as well for all the hard work and the successes along the way. And so let me see who we want to give a little bit of priority to. And I also want to invite folks at this time, if you want to do the hand raise function, I can also call on you and you can open up your mic to ask questions as well. Deadline for the application, I believe they said March 20.
So there will be 2 waves. We really strongly encourage you to apply in wave 1. All applications not chosen in wave 1 will be moved to wave 2 for consideration as well. We do look at, geographic diversity as well as diversity of covered population served. And we support programming statewide. And more details will be coming in the technical assistance session on February the 7th.
Thank you again. I know that folks want to make sure they heard right and have the right info for that. That's real important for schedules. And of course, holding your calendars also for all the preparatory work is always key as well. So we had, for anyone maybe listening to the recording instead or who's not really following in the chat, we had a question about what constitutes outdated data. Is it a number of years or is there a newer data set available? And so Shabika was able to get back to that person, telling them that using the latest data would be really helpful in assessing need and impact in the present context. So as much as possible, it would be best to use the most recent data set. And Shubika, is there anything else you wanted to say in terms of the available data sets or what can be expected in terms of release dates for data, etc.?
Right, absolutely. Thanks, Nancy, and thanks, Stephanie, for the question. So I see a follow-up as well. That's right. Yeah, it's a little difficult at times to get the most recent, especially around like digital equity. There are a few limited data sources there. And I think all of these different sources have like different life cycles for when they're updated also. So I definitely hear you when you say like the last update would have been like 5 years ago, or the latest data wouldn't be available by the time you're writing your application. So that certainly works. That is where your local data or like some of the work that you've done could also just play into like fill in the gap from when the data source was last available or updated, and you have the latest with some of the work that you've done in the community, some of the surveys that you've done in the community that help highlight like the most recent need. So that might be a way to like fill in some of those gaps between data that's available through some of those national and state level sources versus what's available through some of your data collection efforts within the community.
Perfect. And I see a few other questions to get to in the chat, but first I want to go over to Terrence Murphy, who has raised his hand. Terrence, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Question about, I heard early on in the discussion that I saw 3 years. And I'm wondering if all the project submissions you want to be a 3-year performance of the initiatives, the work, or whether it's a 1 year or a 2 year, and then you're measuring things over the second or third year. Is there flexibility, or is there a kind of a fixed thought about what the time frame of these should be?
So we are looking for a 3-year implementation plan. That
Okay.
doesn't mean that, like, for example, if you want to spend the first year planning, laying the groundwork, the second year to implement, the third year to expand or continue, that is fine. You just need to define different outcomes and goals each year, and your quarterly reporting will have to, comply and adhere to those goals.
But and so you're in that sense, then you're looking for a 3-year budget and list of initiatives in the plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. We have a few questions regarding how important it might be to submit that in that first wave of applications, and I see there's some response from Hillary around the consideration for those that have the same criteria, and that again, like Lean also mentioned, the early submission is always best. Is there anything else that is that you both want to say about that?
I can add that our grants team will do like a pre-review to make sure you're eligible, because sometimes folks make simple mistakes and disqualify themselves. We want to make sure that all the elements are there before we start reviewing. So you will have that chance for that. And then we have also previously provided input to your grant proposals, but because a lot of us are merit reviewers, we can only provide very high feedback to your proposal. And then if the grant is still open, you're welcome to resubmit again. And I think Hillary has addressed some of that in the reply as well.
Thank you. Is the 30 to 300,000 wave per year amount for each of the 3 years or the total for 3 years?
Each of the 3 years.
Okay, so up to 900K if you wanted to do sky's the limit type of proposal. Okay. I want to give folks a chance to put any other questions in the chat. Why don't you also indicate an email that folks could email if they think of something after we all sign off today? Of course, I know we have a few other sessions in this series. It was a great kickoff. Thanks for folks for turning out. We have a February 3, 7, 10, and 14, 11 a.m., same time, for the following webinars in this series. And just want to give folks a chance to put anything else in the chat. But I also want to ask Shabika, Hillary, Ling Ling, if there's anything else you feel might be good to add as a takeaway for what you covered today or in general with the series or digital equity work in general in Illinois.
I guess I can share
General
that.
preparedness.
Yes, this has been a long time coming, and I know the NOFA is not coming until February the 3rd. If you're not already certified with GETA system, make sure you're pre-qualified on sam.gov. In our technical assistance webinar on the 7th, we'll also go over how to do those as well and start putting together like information, data, narratives about the things that we've talked about so that you get a head start. And that is why we're starting the webinars early. And in the technical assistance session, we will obviously cover more details about the NOFO instead of being sort of high level today. So make sure you don't miss that. And we're very excited to start the sub-grantee process, as we all know that this is direly needed in our state.
Thanks. There might be some communities or organizations out there that have a wish list of different digital equity initiatives that they are thinking of, like telehealth for a certain covered population or some other type of digital education for a covered population. And we have a question that I think is a really great question, that if you submit something for wave one and then for wave two, you might anticipate that you're going to get that for wave one, but for wave two, you want to submit a whole nother application from the same applicant. What is that okay? Or do you want some sort of consolidation of projects, knowing that you don't want to necessarily, I don't know if saying double dipping or something is good, a good way, but maxing out the funding that might be available for you.
We are expecting a lot of applicants from all over the state. I would encourage every applicant to enter wave one with one really strong application. And if that one is not selected in wave one, again, we'll be reviewing and comparing them again in wave two, ensuring geographic diversity and diversity of covered populations. So, if you're not selecting in wave one, you can submit again in wave two. But I don't necessarily suggest that you submit two different projects as the same organization and in two waves, if that makes sense.
Okay, so, without knowing more information about the specifics in terms of amount and project type, you would generally advise consolidating into an application.
Absolutely.
How might the year of funding be affected by federal changes? Do you have any insight on that? I know a lot of changes happen at the federal level when we have, a shift in administrations. And so if you have any insight into that, I know broadband in general is pretty bipartisan, but if you want to speak to anything that you might see as a change or implication that folks can plan for.
Great question. That speaks to all of our minds right now. Shauna, if you're still on the call, would you like to address this?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Shauna Tates. I am a policy analyst with the Illinois Office of Broadband. Tracking moves at the federal level is a big part of my role. Ultimately, the funds that are a part of the funds that we have for the IDEC program have been appropriated by the federal government. So they are ultimately ours. Those funds aren't at risk. And our goal with launching this program now is that we're able to get everything aligned and ready to go and approved by the federal government in a way that doesn't affect any shifts that might otherwise, hit equity programs at the federal level. So we're doing our very best to make sure that what we are doing aligns and will be approved by the federal government. Thus far, we don't have any reason to believe that the IDEC program is at major risk, but we will definitely keep folks updated if anything around that changes.
Thank you, Shauna.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a question around the technical assistance webinar for February 7, and really great to include that is included now on the grant registration, the webinar series registration. So you would get the link and the information for that technical assistance date if you're already registered. So I believe most folks on the call are and would receive that information via email. And another question here, do you have advice on how to structure an application that becomes only partially funded, where the outcomes, impact, and budget have to be scaled back? And it looks like you took care of that, and that you might take that conversation offline. But of course, anything you want to say about the application structure in terms of budget and such, feel free to add anything here.
Yeah, it's definitely dependent on your specific project details and understanding what sort of impact and services you're providing and the community that you serve. So it wouldn't be one answer that fits all. So
Sure.
happy to more one-on-one. Yep.
Thank you. And of course, the email broadband@illinois.gov is in the chat if folks need to send those emails. Thanks for staying on. We're at 12:05 and really just grateful for you all answering questions here. And, for me, I'm okay to continue. There is one more question, and then I think we can probably close out. Does coordinating and reporting on each unserved or underserved community fall under the umbrella with the three community engagement managers that are here on the call today?
I'm not entirely sure if I understand the question. So in terms of project reporting, you will each have a specific grant manager that works with you instead of the community engagement managers. You can reach out to the community engagement managers throughout the application process. We're happy to address any questions. We'll also be in the open office hours. But when it comes to grant management reporting, it will be grant managers. And I believe we have a team of 4 to 5 grant managers.
Thank you so much. I want to just thank everyone for their discussion today. Thanks for the presentation. We are going to be back here February 3rd. Really looking forward to the next session in the series. I hope to see you all there. Of course, one more time, you'll receive a follow-up of the recording slides and other program information from today. And we hope you have an excellent weekend and a great rest of January. See you on February 3.
Thank you.
Thanks all.